So, so this webinar, as I said already, is a teach-in on Palestine and the political situation in West Asia. We have a number of speakers with us. In the very beginning, we have people from the Resist US-led War movement, based in the US, as it says. We have Rhonda Ramiro, and Rhonda is also the external vice president for ILPS. And then Cody Urban, who is the treasurer for the International League of People's Struggle. And then, of course, we have Kali Brook, who is from the Resist US-led War itself. So I will leave it to them to introduce Resist to all of you. And they will be speaking they will really provide us an overview of who are the main actors, the aggressors, the genocidal forces who are responsible for what is happening in West Asia right now. So over to you, Rhonda.
Thank you so much, Azra. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Really excited to be here on behalf of the Resist US-led War movement. Resist is a global network of anti-war and peace organizations and activists united in the broadest fight against US-led war and militarism, and fighting to build a just and lasting peace around the world. Resist is a fairly young anti-war network. We were founded as a result of a conference that was held by the International League of People's Struggle and the International Women's Alliance just a few years ago, and established precisely because of situations that we're seeing right now. So what we are living through and what we're witnessing are wars of aggression, occupation, and counterinsurgency escalating all around the as the world's largest powers vie for economic and territorial domination of the world, which is an inevitable result of the crisis of imperialism that we are living in today. As we see this war, occupation, and expansion of aggression, we need to understand the historical context in which it is taking place, so that we also understand how to act in solidarity with the people on the ground who are both resisting war and genocide and also waging their struggles for national and social liberation, as we recognize that the victory of any one of these struggles for liberation strikes a material blow to cut off some point of the imperialist chokehold that is gripping the people of the world. And that is the most true at the moment, and the most shining example of that is in Palestine, as we're seeing today and as we're going to be talking about in the teach-in today. So as we dive into this, the Resist US-led War movement felt like we needed to ask and answer a few really important questions. So who are the imperialist powers behind this current situation? What are they trying to achieve? How does that serve their class interests and not the interests of the vast majority of people in the region or in the world? And how are they attempting economically, politically, and militarily to protect their interests? So let's start off. Who are we talking about here? It's the US and its allies in the group of 7, the UK, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, and Japan, together also known as the G7, the largest economies in the world. They are the ones who are instigating, backing, funding, arming, providing intelligence for, or involved in some way in virtually all of the world's wars in the world at the present time, and most especially in the region we're discussing today, West Asia. On the one hand, they want to own and control the resources in these countries, including oil and natural gas. They want to control the markets for their products. They want to control the land, the sea, the air through which these resources and manufactured goods will be transported. And as they seek to retain ownership and control of these resources and markets for profit, the imperialists utilize militarism to enforce their control, to keep rivals at bay, and to suppress people's resistance, as the people inevitably rise up to oppose their exploitation, the theft of their lands, and the plunder of their resources. As the imperialists pour more and more money into their militaries, we see those weapons, transnational corporations rake in billions of dollars in profits in sales of their products and prop up the economies of the countries whose economies are dependent on the military-industrial complex. My comrade, Carly Brooke, also from the Resist US-Led War movement, will go a little bit more in depth into who those weapons corporations are and just how much money they're making from the war today. If I could ask Rithik, who is sharing screen right now, if you could advance the slides. This is the region of, I'm sorry, I forgot to start off with this, but if we move on to the next slide, we can see just how heavily covered the region is in US forces, planes, aircraft carrier, troops, all blanketing the area. And this slide was a little bit dated just by a few weeks, but now we have 40,000 troops on the ground. There's at least one aircraft carrier, and sometimes there have been as many as 2 at a time, and many more of the war planes and aircraft being brought in daily. Just last week, announcements of more coming to the area, all to bolster and support the Zionist state in occupying Palestine and continuing to serve as the attack dog in the region. So we can stay on this slide, though. This US military strategy is not just about military force and might. It's inextricably linked with the economic agenda of the G7. And how is this? So how are US imperialism and its G7 allies implementing both their economic agenda and military strategy? So let's look at 3 areas. So for control of resources, control of trade routes, and military enforcement. The US and its Western imperialist allies have identified 3 main adversaries in their quest, and for the US principally in its quest to claw back to its sole superpower dominance in what is actually now a multipolar world. These adversaries are the People's Republic of China, named as the US's most, quote, consequential strategic competitor and pacing challenge. The second, Russia, named as, quote, an acute threat with its nuclear capability, and then in particular in the wake of its counteraggression against Ukraine. And then the US names that it needs to mitigate and protect against threats from Iran and extremist actors. So in attempting to outcompete their rivals, these 3 main rivals that they've outlined, the US has forged numerous multilateral economic and trade schemes to carve out areas and countries that it influences. Just in recent years, I mean, we won't go back decades, which today is built on, but even just looking at the most recent years, and even the past just 2 or 3 years, one that came into play just last year, 2023, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, covering about 60% of the world's economies in the East and Southeast Asia and Pacific. This put in place what they called pillars to reinforce the rules-based order in order to secure economic interests and opportunities in the region. One of the key pillars of this agreement is digital trade. So ensuring the US and its allies access to servers and semiconductors and using the cheap labor that could be bought and exploited in East and Southeast Asia. It's a real desperate attempt of the US to kind of put a last-ditch effort into saving the neoliberal economic system that it's using at the moment. A second agreement to point out is the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which was just inked in 2022, aimed at building out more infrastructure for the G7, but linking that Indo-Pacific Economic Framework that we just talked about, and in particular India, to what has been traditionally called the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, and aimed, quote, what it says, catalyzing public and private finance to advance climate and energy security, health and health security, digital connectivity, and gender equality, all while creating opportunities for American business. So in the end, it's not really about providing any kind of climate or energy security for the world, but it's about creating opportunities for American business. And then the last economic agreement that I want to mention, Irathik, if you can advance to the next slide, is the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, which was announced just last year at the G20 summit in September, right before October 7th. It's an infrastructure plan. So when we were talking about economic agreements, you also need to build out infrastructure to be able to transport the goods that you're trying to, and resources that the US is trying to ensure its dominance of, transport it from one area to another. And this India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor is one of those methods. An infrastructure plan to build ports and railways and roads that physically link the resources that it's able to plunder via the IPEF agreement in India and other parts of Asia through the corridor here in the as you see on the screen, through basically the Middle East, with what is the Zionist state as a really critical linchpin in the whole thing, in order to be able to move your goods from India, which is the yellow, all the way up to Europe on the left. So this agreement would really link the G7 powers with the lands of and the resources of East Asia. The biggest shipping contract that is supposed to be awarded through this agreement is to the company Maersk, which is also one of the companies that ships the most weapons to the Zionist entity at the moment. So there's many connections here. And another crucial aspect of this IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor plan, is that it has to go through the port of Haifa in occupied Palestine. And so the US and its allies holding on to the region is critical in order to facilitate this kind of plunder and money-making schemes. So how does it continue to do this? We know it's through military force, and especially and most crucially through the brutal Zionist occupation, and also facilitated by military agreements with other local reactionary regimes, which right after I speak, my comrade Cody will go further into. I just want to end with outlining what the Biden-Harris national security strategy says about its particular framework for its military strategy in what they call the Middle East. They deem it as their framework is to de-escalate and integrate the Middle East part framework. And so these aren't my words, these are their words. This is what they intend to do with this framework and what they've been implementing for the past 3 years under Biden and Harris. So first, support and strengthen partnerships with countries that subscribe to the rules-based international order and ensure they can defend themselves against foreign threats. So rules-based international order, real buzzwords for the neoliberal economic order. So ensure that the area is safe for privatization, deregulation, contractualization, all the things that underpin the neoliberal economic system. Number 2, not allow foreign or regional powers to jeopardize freedom of navigation through the Middle East waterways, including the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandab, not tolerate efforts by any country to dominate another or the region through military buildups, incursions, or threats. And what do they mean by this? They mean anyone that's opposed to the United States and its allies and its lackeys in the area. They want to ensure that nobody else has the freedom to navigate through those waters but themselves. They claim they want to reduce tensions and de-escalate through diplomacy, which we have seen to never be true, since the first thing they always go to is the military, in continuing to pour billions and billions of dollars a year, and additionally now into the Zionist entity. Fourth, promote regional integration by building political, economic, and security connections between and among US partners, including through integrated air and maritime defense structures. And we've seen this play out throughout this whole year and beyond, of course, through the ways in which the US is also conducting its own airstrikes, its own intelligence sharing, and bringing in the aircraft carriers and the fighter jets, et cetera, to integrate its defense systems, right, with the Zionist entity and its allies in the area to try and keep down the Palestinian resistance. I'll just say one last thing, and I feel like this is a good transition over to Cody, is that in the national security strategy of Biden and Harris, they also specifically, of course, talk about Iran. And we can't talk about the region and what's happening right now without discussing Iran. And the US approach to it, I'll just quote one more time, is that they are saying their support is to identify and support action against Iranian and Iranian-backed threats, to cooperate with regional and global partners that results in their increased ability to deter and defend against potential aggression from Iran, working on advanced integrated air and missile defense, maritime security, irregular warfare, regional security coalitions within the Gulf Cooperation Council, and among states in the region to ensure maritime security and improve collective intelligence and warning. So an essential thrust of the US Western imperialist strategy in West Asia is to cooperate with and build up the capacity of its local reactionary allies in the region. And so to talk more about that, I want to pass it over to Cody, who will break that down for us.
Thank you, Rhonda. Good morning, good evening, comrades. I think we'll just to move along with this presentation. So remember, if you remember that map you just saw of IMEC, that massive profit-driven development scheme cutting right through West Asia, right through occupied Palestine from India into Western Europe. That is the picture that this fascist war criminal right here, whose name I will not say, is holding up, this picture that he calls the blessing, this exact picture of that economic corridor next to all of the countries that are currently fighting tooth and nail against the Zionist occupation, which he calls the curse. So if you need any more proof to see how the imperialists' interests fit exactly with the Zionist project, I don't know what else to give you on this. If you jump to the next slide, please, there's a map you're going to see that I'm sure most of you have seen before on the left, the historical creep of the Zionist occupation throughout almost all of Palestine right now. And I'm not going to talk about this because we just don't have time, but if you or your organization has not led educations about this, we all need to be doing this, talking about the actual history that goes into the land grabs and the growing occupation of the Zionist entity. What I am going to talk about is this picture on the right to let us know that this has been the plan since day one. The Zionist project was genocide in the making since the Zionist project was born. Since the birth of the Zionist movement in the 1800s, it was never just about Palestine. The Zionist movement has had this idea of quote unquote greater Israel for years. It goes back to the Bible, the Torah, where it says that the Jewish people were promised a land from the Nile River into the Euphrates. And so the Zionist entity and the states that the regimes that have run it have looked at this idea of greater Israel and have always tried to expand to it. Think of what's happening now in the north. You're seeing actual moves into Lebanon. I think some people may have seen there was an article, I think in the Jerusalem Post. It was taken down immediately after international outcry, but it was asking the question, is Lebanon part of historic Israel, quote unquote? And they're also children's books in settlements that have been discovered that are teaching kids that Lebanon is part of Israel and that we should settle it. This goes back to this idea that Greater Israel is almost the entire Middle East. That is what the Zionists are after. That is why they are trying to expand and go after every single nation in the area and pummeling anyone who is resisting. It is because they're trying to spread and expand. And if you need any other evidence of this, and if you just jump to the next slide again, so you can see that picture that the war criminal is holding up of IMEC, and you can see how actually the countries in IMEC match Greater Israel. Again, this is no accident. The founder of this guy's party, the ruling party in the Zionist entity, the Likud party, was actually the leader of a terrorist gang that was named a terrorist by international forces in the 20s. Jair Zabaniski, who actually wrote an essay where he's talking about Greater Israel, and we need to expand all across the Middle East. And to like not cut any corners with what the plan was, they described what to do with the Palestinians. They made the same metaphor as what the US did to indigenous peoples as the US settler colonial project was expanding. It said we have to destroy them, we have to make sure that they have no hope of ever coming back home. Meaning that this project knew that the Palestinian people were indigenous and knew they had to get them off of their land to create this Greater Israel. That terrorist gang that said that back in the day evolved into the party that this guy is here, that is ruling and that is implementing the plan of Greater Israel through genocide, so that the imperialists are allowing it to happen so that they can gather the resources in the area. And if you jump to the next slide again, I wish we had more time, but I also want to get to our comrades Hassan and Layla, who are going to tell us more about what the resistance to this is actually looking like. Look at the reactionary Arab regimes in the region, like the ones who signed the Abraham Accords with the US and Israel, UAE and Bahrain, completely throwing the Palestinian cause out the window so that they could get their cut of all of those economic deals that Rhonda was just telling us about. Look at the oil resources here, like the massive Ghawar oil reserves in Saudi Arabia, or this huge natural gas deposit off the coast of Qatar. It makes it so clear why they signed this backstabbing deal with the Zionist entity in the US so they can get their cut of these oil profits. And one more slide for me is there's all these other ways that they get their cut. The Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, they're having these massive development projects that are just vanity projects, completely exploiting the work of thousands of migrant laborers who are working themselves to death. They get the investment for that from the West by allowing all of this military placement in the region. This is the air base in Qatar, the one of the US's largest air bases. There's 13,000 US troops here. The US 5th Naval Fleet is based in Bahrain. Of course, they're gonna bend over backwards for the US. Jordan, that helped fight back against Iran's counterattack to try to fight back against the Zionist entity that was waging its genocidal warfare, was given NATO status. This is how isolated the Palestinian people were just before October 7th last year, when they launched their national liberation struggle. So you see just how many players are involved in this. And to really get in to show the profits and show some of the other players that are profiting off of this, I'll pass it to Carly next.
Yes. While we're thinking about the state actors, we also have to be vigilant about the methods of war profiteering of the world's largest weapons transnational corporations and their extreme complicity in the genocide against Palestine. Here on the screen, you can see the six war profiteers and military contractors that produce the most revenue out of creating the weapons. And these companies are headed by the world's most powerful class of monopoly capitalists in the world. These weapons companies play a leading role in securing billions of dollars in profits secured through political and economic system of occupation, genocide, war, settler colonialism. And these are the corporations with global operations who are profiting from the industrial mass production of high-tech weapons of war. And these are just the profits this year. So when we think about the scale of their profiteering, we know that this is backed by intense interests that were just mentioned. We know that the stock prices of these corporations are also actively rising over the course of the last year. And we'll look into that in just a moment. But just to call out some of the intense destruction, the intense loss of life, and violence of these corporations. If we look into Raytheon RTX right here, this company makes the interceptor missiles that are used in Israel's Iron Dome. So you can see the efficacy of the missile defense system of this joint project. The Iron Dome was started by Israel, but then became a joint project of the United States. And these are shot down through interceptor missiles that Raytheon makes. So when resistance attempts to fight back, to defend itself against the violent settler colonial occupation, it's using Raytheon's missile interceptors to prevent those resistance operations from the regional resistance powers. When we look at Northrop Grumman, they're making F-16 fighter jets selling directly to Israel. And these are used in repeated attacks on densely populated areas in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, as well as in Lebanon. General Dynamics is one of the primary aerial munitions producers that Israel is using to bomb Gaza. And this company produces 2,000-pound bombs. These mean instant death for people within 100 feet, with lethal fragments extending up to 1,200 feet. And these are being dropped in intensely populated areas in the southern Gaza Strip, where Israel has supposedly ordered civilians to move to safety with no real possibility of evacuating these areas. And so these have killed thousands of families, as well as Boeing here, which is the world's 5th largest manufacturer, producing F-15 fighter jets and Apache attack helicopters, as well as the Joint Direct Attack Munitions, or JDAM kits, which are exposed to have been used in the bombing of the Al-Shifa hospital, as well as many of the refugee camps, causing massive fires and death of many civilians. So these corporations, if you go to the next slide, are extremely complicit in the gross human rights violations. But it wouldn't be possible without the blood money that is backing the genocide from the United States. So here we have the CEO of the world's most profitable war profiteering company, CEO Jim Teichlet. He makes $22 million every year to produce the tools of genocide. Of course, we know that there is intense also support directly from the United States government. And there's many forms of these transfers listed at the bottom. We have direct arms transfers, foreign military sales, arms sales. Israel itself has weapons stored up in a reserve stock that they're drawing from. There's defense lobbying. The weapons contractors also sit inside the government many times and are legislating for this funding, and then foreign military financing, as well as joint projects like the Iron Dome. So immediately after October 7th, we had the world's largest weapons companies prepared and ramping up, accelerating their support for the genocide. And we would be remiss not to mention the defense lobby within the imperialist countries. In the United States alone, in 2023, IPEC lobbied with $139 million to influence U.S. policy. So if you go to the next slide, these war criminals have admitted themselves that this blood money is essentially backing the war crimes of Israel. Back in October 2023, this was an article in the Wall Street Journal saying Hamas has created an additional demand. Wall Street has its eyes set on big profits from war. So in this case, Morgan Stanley and the bank, the TD Bank, are expecting that aerospace and weapons will boom, and they did. Just 1 year later, this article came out. Israel's wars mean massive returns for U.S. arms company investors. The arms industry stocks are outperforming their index funds. And what we're seeing here is that the stock market is designed, right? The class of monopoly capitalists and finance capitalists directly benefit from the growth of the occupation and the genocide. So, yeah, we're here to point out the role of the weapons corporations, of the imperialist states, of the local Arab reactionary governments, and of course the Zionist entity, to expose these really targets and forces of our struggle. And we'll hear more from Leila and Hassan about what the resistance looks like in the region just after this. So, thank you. Pass it back to.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kali. Thank you so much, Rhonda, Cody, and Kali. I mean, that was blood chilling, the information that you provided. And it is what we live with every single day of our lives. I much longer than October 7th of last year. But this whole year has been very, very difficult. I think nobody has had any peace. And I cannot imagine what is happening inside occupied Palestine right now. So thank you very much for giving us such clear identification of who the aggressors are, who are these reactionary forces, from the defense corporations to the warmongers, the war criminals. And Cody is very right in not naming them. Why should we taint our tongues naming these bloodthirsty vultures? So from here, let me introduce you to our next speaker. It's my great pleasure to introduce Brother Hassan Al-Jaja. He is a senior agricultural consultant and the co-founder for the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature and also the Arab Network for Food Sovereignty. I've known them for many years, and their work is extraordinary in face of intense brutality of the Zionist state. Hassan is a human rights advocate and mobilizer. He's focusing on environmental and food justice, especially for communities living under settler colonialism, neo-colonialism, and oppression. So thank you very much, Hassan, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And I appreciate this invitation, and I hope we can have a fruitful discussion later. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. My contribution today will not be limited to the topic of the resistance axis in the region, which consists of the Lebanese national resistance, the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, Ansarullah in Yemen, as well as the states of Syria and Iran. The war of destruction and extermination waged by the West, led by the United States, using the Zionist enemy as a tool to execute its strategy in the region and the world, targets the entire region, its components, capabilities, and sources comprehensively. American imperialism has reshaped the global power balance to its advantage, forming it around a single dominant pole after it actively contributed to the destruction of the Soviet Union. And the containment and weakening of local national forces in Asia, Africa, and South America, concluded that its interest and mission now is to prevent any other power or powers from building or potentially building any economic or military capacities that could challenge the US dominance over the world and its economy in the future. Here, we speak of China and Russia. A precise analysis of the global situation leads us to the conclusion that controlling energy is the path to controlling the world. The United States is the world's leading oil producer, consuming nearly as much as it produces. Due to its imperialist nature, it seeks to control other oil sources worldwide, particularly in the Middle East, South America, and Africa. If successful, it achieves a key goal, depriving China of the energy needed to make its economy a serious competitor to the US economy. If China's current growth continues, it will become the world's largest economy. American imperialism engineered, financed, and led the war against Russia through NATO, using Ukraine puppet regime as the spearhead. This war depletes Russia's economic, military, human, and social resources, while binding Europe's resources entirely to the US. Eventually, the US will position itself to rebuild Europe after this destructive war, as it did after World War II with the Marshall Plan. We must understand that the role of the resistance axis in the region is a historical necessity for all the region's components, even those practicing political, economic, and military dependency on imperialism. They are targeted as well, but they come next. The solid alliance between the resistance axis parties must be cemented with precise coordination in all fields and should receive direct support from Russia and China, because what is happening now and has been happening for a year and even for some time before, starting with the war in Syria, this is essentially a proxy war against them. The historical need and urge of Russia to have bases on the warm waters, now in Syria, is being seriously jeopardized. If the Syrian state is at stake, so there is an obligation on Russia to defend the Syrian state. Now the Israelis are being able to use airstrikes against Syria, and till now Russia is not doing an active role in defending Syria, which is a strategic mistake in this relation. The West, mainly USA, is destroying Gaza to give way for the creation of alternative route of the Silk Road that China is working very hard to construct, namely the Indian Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. Now, I would rather not use the term opportunistic position, but I should say that Russia and China are targeted in this war, and they should play a much active role in defending the direct fighters who are carrying the burden of this genocidal war. Each party within the resistance axis, whether Iran, Syria, Iraq, Ansarullah in Yemen, or the national resistance in Lebanon, faces internal challenges and enemies connected to the external adversary, as well as severe Western imposed sanctions, exacerbating their internal problems. The enemy is working to create intractable situations, driving our societies towards conflict, fragmentation, and internal destruction. We face this in every arena: Syria, Iran, Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon. I don't want to go into details naming or explaining the different challenges that each component of the axis is facing. Maybe in another chance, there would be more time to do so. Now, this drives us to work on postponing, freezing, and attempting to resolve any internal secondary contradiction in order to be able to focus on our greater war with the primary contradiction, the Zionist enemy, which is the spearhead of imperialist aggression against our nation and people. Now, if you want to have a strategic look on the situation in our area, we find that the enemy has very strong factors superior to ours. Mainly, the most advanced arms and most advanced ammunition, most advanced rockets, most advanced artificial intelligence, most advanced intelligence articles. Of course, they are most or all of them are supplied from the West, mainly from USA. Many military planes, rockets, reconnaissance machinery and tools, very sophisticated artificial intelligence apparatus are being used for the first time in the world. We all know what happened in Lebanon. The enemy has unlimited sources of financial resources and various land and sea bases in Europe, as my comrade has just explained. In Europe, Middle East, as well as aircraft carriers and rockets hovering in the adjacent seas and oceans. On the other hand, we have a strategic position regarding the vast geography and hundreds of millions of people. We have lost more than 100,000 people in Gaza till now. We know of 50,000, but there are maybe double the number under the rubble now. But we are still fighting. And we are still fighting very hard. And 2 days ago, our freedom fighters in Gaza could bomb Tel Aviv from the same area that is being now occupied by the Zionist army. But I would like to ask, what if the Israelis lost 100,000 casualties? Where would they be? Our freedom fighters are heroes in Gaza, West Bank, in Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Sudan, and other countries in the region. We have extremely bright examples of patience, belief, courage, integrity, and steel will to protect our people and nation. And we have all the confidence that we will win. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Hassan. Yes, inshallah, no doubt we will win. That is what we fight for, to win this war against imperialist aggression. From Hassan, I go to somebody whom I've admired most of my political life. Today we have with us an iconic, revolutionary, ferocious freedom fighter who through many decades has remained a legend, a warrior who has no fear. She has fought not only against the Zionists, but also against imperialists. She has fought against class exploitation. She has fought against settler colonialism, and she suffered from that from a very young age. It is my honor to introduce Comrade Leila Khalid. Comrade, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ezra. It's my pleasure to address you this night with all the grief in our hearts for those children in Gaza who were terminated by the Israeli army. And the gang in Tel Aviv is still looking forward to more blood of our people, to more sufferings. And I have a letter, a message from Gaza today in the morning. The man who I talked to is a doctor in the hospital in the middle of Gaza, the hospital, Al-Aqsa Hospital. The Israelis told them to evacuate from the hospital and to take with them the wounded. He told me, we didn't answer. We are still staying here. This is our land. We will not leave our land in all situations that they have put in. And he told me to tell you, because I told them I'm going to be on Zoom with our comrades and friends who are still struggling against the imperialists, including Israel. They are supporting you. I told them that. And they are ready always to do what is needed. But at the same time, there were 4 massacres that night. In the early morning, they asked the people to evacuate, and the people have no safe place in Gaza now. They said, we are not leaving our houses. They have a little of the houses. Some are living on the rubbles where their houses were there. They are calling upon you and saying that, please don't leave us. Keep with us and keep high. We are going to be victorious because we are still staying on our land. Here we lived and here we die. We are not afraid being dying, but we are afraid that they will win this war. I assured them that Gaza changed the world, and Gaza area is only 365 square kilometers, where 2.5 million. It's the most, Gaza, the most place in the world which have this quantity of people, inhabitants, 2.5 million. And still the Israelis want to end the lives of our people. The martyrs were killed in the streets, and nobody could come to risk them or to take them to bury them. Still now, until now, I just closed the link with them, and I'm seeing something. It's horrible. This is terrorism. This is war criminals are continuing their massacres over our people in Gaza Strip. They wanted them to go out or they will be killed. They tell them these words and they say, we are not leaving. Even maybe tonight they will target the hospitals to kill the wounded and the patients there. And they told me that tonight we will not have any more of electricity for the incubators and for the people who are in intensive care. This is the situation. And although they don't have food, they don't have water, no electricity, no water, no food, because they are not, the Israelis are not allowing any human aids for them, including UNRWA. Lazzarini, the chief of UNRWA, was calling upon the whole world. We cannot continue to give the people any kind of any human things, including water and medicine. This is the situation. But our people are still clinging to their land. They don't want to leave it because the generation in 1948 were driven out by massacres from Palestine, and they came here to this place, the Gaza Strip. They said, we are not going to repeat the Nakba. Nakba in Arabic means catastrophe. Even the Israelis don't want us to use this terminology, Nakba. it is a catastrophe from 1948. And now they are using what Hassan said about what kind of arms that they were supported by the Americans. Every day, the Pentagon, the White House, they declare that Israel has the right to defend itself. But they don't see that we need the help. We're not expecting them to help us because they have interests. They want Israel to support their interests in the region. I have seen what Netanyahu said in the United Nations. He was not ashamed of being a war criminal as with what he is doing and his position towards our people. He doesn't care about international law. Israel describes itself above international law. Who is going to punish Israel? Who? In the International Court of Justice, what are they doing now? Aren't they seeing that this is genocide? What are they waiting for to say it? Israel should be punished for its for the massacres, and it is genocide. They are terminating the lives of thousands of people. Are we waiting for 2.5 million to be terminated from their land? Not alive, but killed with cold blood. Even the army are complaining now because they said we are not seeing an army against us. We are seeing people coming from the ground to shoot at us, as if it is their right to shoot and to kill at the same time. This is the policy of this Israel. Now, who is going to punish Israel? This international system has lost its values, human values. They speak about democracy, they speak about human rights, they speak about rights for women and labor and also. But what is this democracy they are speaking about? While genocide is against a small people who they don't have arms, only the resistance. And when we say the resistance, we can define it with two. Those who are fighting with arms, and this is our right to fight with all means, including armed struggle. This is in the United Nations Charter. It's the United Nations Charter number 8. It says that people who are under oppression and occupation have the right to resist by all means, including armed struggle. Yes. Now, we have armed struggle. We are using our right to restore our rights. And at the same time, the people are resilient. They want to stay in their homes and even on the rubbles of their homes. This means that these factors can bring for us not only solidarity from the whole world, but also to bring us victory. And we think that this is the only way to treat such criminals in Tel Aviv. Now, we are asking you to pressure also your governments to change their positions. We look about the main instrument in your hands. You go to the streets, you call for stop genocide in Gaza and in the West Bank as well. And now they are trying to make genocide in Lebanon because the imperialists and their puppet, Israel, they want all the region to give up. We, with you, will never give up. We will continue even with all the sufferings and the grief and with all what's going on. Blood every day from our children. The small children, you see them that they are cut by the new arms. It cuts their legs and hands. What is this kind of beastful, or I don't know any words to speak about the arms that they are using to make the people more and more suffering, not only by losing their children, but also the way they lose their children. You can't imagine when you see them in the streets, they ask them to go from one side to another side every time. All this war. Don't go to that street, go to this street. They didn't leave any street for our people to walk on. They just bring the bulldozers and they put everything under rubble. And Hassan told you that there are people under rubbles more than those over the land. Let me tell you, we as a people, we believe that peoples of the world are supporting us. But with what? No human aids can enter Gaza. Nothing, no food. They tell us we are hungry. Our children are starving and they are dying. And they show us how the children are dying because they don't have nutrition. Everyone is speaking about water. They go to the sea and bring water, they boil it, but they don't have anything to boil with. Can you imagine? This is the way Gaza and also in the West Bank. The West Bank is fighting. They are put in prisons, torturing them in a very beastful way. It is their nature. The Zionists, their ideology, always kill who is not a Jew. Kill, just kill, or spit on them when you see them, even when you pass, this is in the Torah. When you pass by a cemetery, just spit on them because they are not Jews. Imagine, it's not only the military, but also the society. Now, the society, 64%, they call Netanyahu to go for the war, to continue the war. Because they are a society, a militarized society with this ideology. It's not only a political one, but also it changes the in their education that they should be the masters of the world. And others, the non-Jew, they say it, this is in the Torah, again I say it, that who is not a Jew should be a slave for us. And This is not genocide. This is something else, as the Nazis, that they are from a different textile, because God gave them the right, and it is a promise from God. What God they believe in? God is always something good for the people who believe. But those who do not believe, they don't believe in anything, not any human thing. I know that I have to continue what the speakers spoke about the international situation. But I'm telling you because of the harm of what we feel also as human beings. In Gaza, nothing is human. No food, no water, no electricity, no medicine. All sources of life, they stopped it against them. But still, our children go to the streets and speak that we will never leave Gaza. Gaza is our mother. Our children say that, even if they are under the atrocities that Israel is beholding for them. Now, to go for politics, this is not politics. We have never studied in history that there were such hegemony or such massacres. But now we are supported. I don't want to say that we don't have hope. We live in hope. They, the Israelis, because they are the thieves of our land, they did what the Nazis did not do. And now we have our comrades, our friends, our people from Lebanon. They are targeting them. They wanted to kill all the leaders, not only the people, but the leaders of the people, like what they happened, assassinated Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. He is a leader, yes, because he had a belief that we have to resist until we achieve victory. They killed him, assassinated him, thinking that his party, Hezbollah, that they will surrender. But they will not surrender. No. They are fighting now, fighting for Gaza and for Lebanon. What Hassan said and what Kony said, that that Israel wants to be greater Israel. Lebanon is part of it. Gaza, the West Bank, and all Palestine and other lands from Syria and Iraq and Egypt. Can you imagine what is this project? It's unhuman, even though they are trying to do that everywhere in the world. The Zionist movement is very organized. We know that very well, but they are working in every country as part of the governors of the country. They do that, and they will continue, but only by war, by force. They depend on their force only, and their power, their the ammunition. They don't buy it from the United States. They give The United States is the head of the imperialists, and they are supporting Israel with all arms and ammunition and millions of dollars to compensate what Israel is losing. And at the same time, we see on the other side of the scene, people are migrating. The settlers are migrating now. This is the way that we can overcome and let them leave our land because they stole it. And you know, the thief is always afraid of the one they stole from. They are afraid from us because they know that we are a people that will not leave their country and will return, as for the refugees, to return to this land. This is our land. And for this reason, as long as we appreciate highly your attitude by showing your solidarity to us, it gives us strength. We need strength to face the strength that they are using it against us. We cannot continue by just begging the world. We don't beg. We resist and resist and resist. So all together to resist what this horrible thing going on the world, humanity must be proceeding forward. But what we have seen in the 21st century, wars and wars and wars initiated by the imperialists. They did not forget their history. We do not also forget our history, but we want to change. In this era, we have been for 100 years as a people resisting, revolting, making intifadas, but yet we didn't achieve the goals of our resistance. Alone, we cannot do it. We can sacrifice. But you, when you are with us, and you are with us, with this, now we are speaking to each other to know more about what's going on. We need time and we need the power. As a human being, we live with hope. They live with fear that they will lose what they stole from us. I tell you now, when I finish, I will go back to my people to tell them that there are millions of people represented by you, that they are struggling also to end the line of imperialists. What they do for this world, they are destroying this planet.
وقت أسئلة ليلى. هلا في وقت أسئلة حبيبي.
So I will say now I would like to talk more, but now it's enough for this dose of pushing forward together to reach our goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade. Thank you so much. Both Comrade Hassan, Comrade Laila, in their own way, has provided us extremely in-depth analysis and understanding, further understanding of what is happening in the occupied Palestine. Even though hearing Comrade Laila was heartbreaking, it was very hard. It has always been hard to know what is happening, but I and all our comrades across the world understand that the imperialists fear us more than we fear them. We don't fear them. And we know how to fight, and we know how to resist, and we know how to exist. And they cannot take the world away from us. And I really thank Leila and Hassan for what they have given us. The floor is now open for questions, and I hope that both all the speakers would be able to provide further insight, and we would have our participants asking more questions. I know that there was a question earlier about what is an Iron Dome, and Cody had put an answer in the chat itself. But if there are other people who would like to speak, please either just raise your hand, this virtual hand. It's under more, I think, if you go under more or react. If you go under react, there is a hand, you can raise your hand. Or if you find that difficult, maybe just open your camera and raise your hand so that we can see. Thank you. Any takers? Wali Haider, please, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, comrades, Comrade Jaja and Comrade Laila Khalid. I always inspired by both of his speech. And it was again inspiring, very influential. I just want to ask, because back at home in Pakistan, there is the common people discussion is, though the Palestinian people are ready to die, but will not leave their land. That's the truth, and that's their strength, and that's they have proven. But the common discussion is that around Palestinian, the Arab world, is there a possibility that not the ruling elite of the Arab world, but the common people realizes and understand the atrocities and the genocide is happening just in the neighbor, and they stand up for Palestinian people's struggle, and then there will be more strength, and we can overcome this monster imperialism and Israel per se. So is there that kind of a wave or move or mobilization or sentiment, a possibility, or is this happening? Any of you can respond, not specifically to anyone else. Thank you.
Maybe I can ask another question, which is in the chat, so that we have a number of questions together. So Izzy, who is in transit, wants to know, her question or his question is, would you folks say that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Ansarullah are proxies of Iran? So there are these two questions. Anybody can answer. Maybe Hassan first.
Yes, thank you, Azra. To answer the first question regarding the common people, the ordinary people, the population, the Arab population around Palestine, yes, for sure, there are very, very strong sentiments and marches and donations and sometimes military actions from Jordan, from Syria, from Egypt, where Zionist soldiers were killed. Now, in general, there is a deep problem of democracy in the Arab world. This is a very big problem, and there are many fragments of the civil society that is donor driven, and this also creates a problem in making the will of the people well transmitted into actions. We have this problem. But the societies are boiling, the people are boiling, and we hope that the volcano will erupt. We hope so. Now, regarding the other question about Hezbollah, Hamas, and Ansarullah, they are components of the axis of resistance. I do not say, and I cannot say actually, that they are proxies of Iran, but they are in the same front, of course. Now, Iran being the largest state and the largest power in this axis, they are able to supply arms, money, and training, political backing, etc. And this is different from being proxies. Thank you. Leila
Thank you,
might
Hassan.
want to comment as well.
Sure, Leila.
There are two questions now. The first one is about the possibility of Arabs to be with us. The people are, the governments are puppets of the Americans and the Israelis, so we don't depend on them. On the contrary, as Hassan said, there is no democracy in these countries, so people cannot do what they should do. As for the other question, because we find calls from people to come and to fight with us from Lebanon or to go to Palestine or whatever, but they cannot do that. People are here in Jordan. A man went and shot 3 soldiers, although there is a treaty between Jordan and Israel. And it was really a very strong step. He was shot dead. But the people here were happy with that because it gave them a new tool to use for the people. The same thing in Palestine. Now, those who are fighting from 1948, they made actions against the Israelis in Bir Sabah and in Jaffa and in Tel Aviv. And they say they have the Israeli identity, but they don't want to recognize them as Palestinians. But they are now beginning their war against Israel. And this is the strategic thing. As for Hezbollah, Ansarullah, Hamas, as what Hassan said is very true, really. These people, we are all together affected by the imperialists. So it's very logic that we go together. Iran is a big state in the region. It has the right to defend itself also in front of all the attacks against Iran. But and Hezbollah the same, Ansarullah, they are people who want to show their solidarity and to defend the Palestinians, and they declare it. They are not afraid of them. So they fight for that. But we look upon Iran as a real friend to us. They support us, yes, politically. They support us with ammunition, with what we need to continue the struggle. And now they are threatened by the Americans and Israel to hit Iran. Okay, we don't like wars. We are obliged to go for wars because we are attacked. So it's the right for Iran really to defend itself with what it has. And still the Americans say, and they are lying, that they are threatening Netanyahu not to go to attack the nuclear things and the petrol, because if Netanyahu goes to attack these plants, it means that there is a third world war. For this reason, I think that how to define all these and to say what Iran must do. It must defend itself and its people and their resources at the same time.
Thank you so much, Hassan and Leila. Very, very concrete answers. There are two more questions. So I will just read out the first one. And also maybe read out the second one, and you can then respond, both of you or others as well. It's Cody and Kali and Rhonda there. So it says, I am a Palestinian and I live in an area that has a lot of Arabs that are apolitical. What do you say to fellow Arabs that remove themselves from the conversation about Palestine and resistance? So that is the first question. And then there is another question, which is about Hezbollah. Olive Moenta says that imperialists are claiming Hezbollah has signed openness to a ceasefire as a sign of weakness. I don't believe this is true. What is a good way to counter this narrative? So they are also in the chat box for your convenience, but I've just read out these two questions.
Who said it? Who said that?
It's a person called Olive Mointer.
Mm-hmm.
Olive Mointer. I will try and copy it and paste it down.
Mm-hmm. That Hezbollah wants to stop the war, or what? But I didn't understand.
That Hezbollah has shown an openness to a ceasefire, and that is a sign of weakness. And so the person who's written this says that they don't believe it is true, and how can we counter this narrative about Hezbollah that people are saying?
If you allow me, Leila, if you allow me to answer the first question regarding the Arab society or whatever, who are not actually taking part in what's happening. It's a matter of understanding and of raising awareness. Actually, the region is one region. Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, etc., are all part of the Arab nation. And the whole area was partitioned by the French and the British in Sykes-Picot plan, and where they have partitioned the world and created actually different states. This was a step which was a prerequisite before handing over Palestine to the Zionists by the British mandate. Now, for my Palestinian brother who is living within this Arab society, I believe you should work on awareness, on their awareness. Of course, they do not represent actually the Arab society all over. Myself, my friend, I'm not a Palestinian in this context. I'm a Palestinian in politics, in struggle, in belonging, in national feelings, but by identity, by which passport I'm carrying, I'm not a Palestinian. So you should not be at all turned down by an idle stand of some people around you. Now, regarding and you can give them, by the way, you can give them some substance, to culture them. That would be, I think, very helpful. You can find a lot of films where the Israelis claim that Greater Israel contains, as Comrade Leila has shown, and has before other comrades have shown, that their Greater Israel contains so many Arab countries. Now, regardless, the Hezbollah, no, it's very easy to try to deform the position of different resistance fractions in the area. We always wait for the formal standpoint, political standpoint of any resistance fraction. Hezbollah did not sign any sign or to a ceasefire, not engaged with Gaza. On the contrary, I think they are waging a minimum of 8 up to 15 big military operations per day against the Israeli enemy in occupied Palestine. This is aside from the confrontations that's taking place on the borders. I would give an example. The Israelis waged 71 airstrikes on one position, and then the EGO's Israeli army tried to penetrate into Lebanon, and they lost 27 soldiers within 1.5 hours. This is the position of Hezbollah. So please, always wait for the formal declaration of any resistance fraction. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Leila, would you like to add?
I have more about this question. Hezbollah is an Arab, but we have the right to have allies also. Israel is supported by all the West with the United States. Is it acceptable? It's not acceptable. They have no borders with them even, but they support them. We need support also. We need the people to support us in our resistance, whether it is Lebanese or Yemeni or Iraqi or Syrian. These are the Arabs, the true Arabs. So it's because they have all the propaganda, our enemies against us, against you, to change the ideas and to iron our conscience. They want to iron our conscience. We are not going to respond for that. As for Hezbollah, they began the next day of 7th of October and began to target the army. Now they are targeting them. And Netanyahu always says, I want the settlers to come back to the north of Palestine. But you will never see that. They are going to the airports to leave Israel. We see it on by the videos that we see that Ben Gurion airport is full of people wanting to leave because those people live in fear. And they say that our government is not defending us, not in the settlements, not in the cities, not anywhere. So we have to leave. And they are packing their bags to leave. This is the way that they understand, because it's not only the Palestinians are resisting, also the Lebanese are resisting, the people and Hezbollah on top of them. In Yemen, we see millions taking the streets and asking to go to the where the war is happening, and they want to come and to fight with us. But we don't need that. They come to our area because they cannot come. But what they did is very important. They closed the Red Sea, and this affects the economy and their trades and whatever. So this is the way they resist, not only by rockets, but also by taking steps to stop them from having arms coming through the Red Sea. And their trade also, not them only, but also the British and the Americans who want to come and to give Israel the ammunition. They have another means. So those are, when I said those are the real Arabs, but also our nation is full of people, national. They feel as human beings and their relation to Palestine in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassan and Leila. Absolutely. And they have no qualms in throwing those tons and tons of bombs. And when the people support, the imperialists have terms like proxies. So very interesting. Thank you so much. We have another question. Actually, two people have asked this question. Would you elaborate more on the role of Russia and China in the war? So open to both of you. There's another hand raised. Let me check. Who is it? Maybe you answer this question first, and then we can go to this question, the next person.
Well, regarding China and Russia, as I said, the war against us is a proxy war against them now. So we are being the front defender. Of course, we're defending our nation, our people, but at the same time, simultaneously, our role is defending their interests in the region and worldwide. because we believe that this war is a very serious step in reshaping the balance of power in the world. So I believe that they should have a much more active role in participation. We do not demand that they fight for us, but as the example I gave, it is not acceptable that the Russians have military bases in Syria, and at the same time, Israel has the opportunity and the freedom to bomb Syria anytime, anywhere, without any interference from the Russian base in Syria. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable at all. Now, regarding China, China doesn't have military existence in the area, but I'm sure they have arms, they have ammunition, they have military weapons, maybe in the field of intelligence, cameras, maybe reconnaissance airplanes, etc., etc. But first, they have to take this. They have to take this decision. Also, it's not acceptable that China would stay idle, would stay on the side, just watching what's happening, and only moving when American airplanes or whatever are near the Chinese borders. Since China is trying to play an international economic role, they have to play a role in defending their interests by firmly and actively standing by us. Thank you.
Leila, would you like to say something?
No, I agree with what Hassan said.
Okay, thank you. So we have Iman. Iman, would you like to ask your question now?
Yes, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I wanted to ask or expand more on one of the points I think Leila brought up earlier, between how it is our responsibility to show solidarity because it gives the Palestinian people strength, and that we can also not get changed by just begging for it, and that we must resist. So I wanted to ask more specifically from the context for those of us in the West, the United States, or as we describe, the belly of the beast, knowing that, you know, we are not the tip of the spear in the fight for Palestinian liberation. How should we like balance or prioritizing between like the popularity of the Palestinian struggle versus prioritizing like a more unapologetic militancy or resistance, yeah, in the context of the West and the context of being past 1 year of this escalated genocide in Gaza? Thank you.
Who would like to answer?
Yeah. We have seen people going to the streets, and there was the students' intifada in the United States. It's the time of elections now, and I expect that these two parties, they have the same strategic policy against us. They have it against the whole world. They want only to even to suffocate us being fighters. They don't want any kind of resistance. But what was done in the United States and in other European countries from the people, from the students, from the leaders, taking the streets, is that enough? I think it's a step forward. You should pressure your governments. The taxes that you are paying, it's going to Israel. Why? What does Israel mean to an American citizen? Is it his duty to support genocide by your taxes? Why? This, you can create the tools that you can pressure your governments to change the policy. It takes time. And I think to use another tool, it's boycotting Israel until it's isolated. Go for that. You can achieve that if people go for, and it is spreading, the boycott is spreading now. So it's another tool that you can use. It's a peaceful use. And even if there are new rules to stop boycotting Israel, like what happened in Europe in different countries, and they don't consider it as a right freedom for expression. This is an expression. So this is only also another tool, and the main tool is to face the media. And on social media, you can use it as another tool, how to express your attitude and how to explain why. Why are you supporting the Palestinians or the resistance against Israel? These are tools, and they are peaceful tools to use. So you can do that easily. It doesn't affect your status. It doesn't affect your life. And it is your right. It's in the charters of those countries, and in the West and in United States. So I think that step by step, we can change the world, not only the United States, but it needs first the time, it needs the tools, it needs also patience until the change happens. The world is changing now. It is changing. So we have to go on with these tools to raise awareness among the people, all people, wherever you are living, what status, what position you have, but you can do it. And I think you will be victorious also.
Thank you very much. And then Hassan has also replied in chat on the question of what should be done. He says boycott. And yes, let's boycott the Zionists, the imperialists in every way we can. I don't see any more questions here. If somebody would like to raise their hand, speak out, you can either write in the chat box or you can maybe just speak if you want to. Friends, we have like maybe 5 minutes more. So it would be great to take some time. Okay, so there is a question in the chat box. It's a comment, so I'll just read out the comment. It says, it came out recently in June, the University of California system sold $161 million worth of investments in companies that profit from this genocide, including Exxon and Honeywell. These are sectors beginning to feel the pressure in the belly of the beast. Yes, indeed. Anybody would like to comment on that or maybe give us some more lessons on how do we resist I think many of the things you have said is happening. It needs to happen more. Just to remind everybody that this program, this teaching will also be happening on the 13th. And we hope Hassan will certainly be there, and we hope Laila will also be able to join. So just for those of us who would be speaking to other people, please let everybody know a similar teaching is happening on the 13th with the same set of speakers. It is to try and reach out to our global community. For some of the people in the far parts of the Pacific, it's too late in the night to be up and around. So with that, I would really like ask Hassan and Laila to maybe give us a couple of minutes each on the final words they would like to say to us. And yes, none of us lose hope. We will be there. If we cannot go fight in Gaza, it's okay. We will fight wherever we are. So Hassan and Laila.
Yes, actually, you are fighting where you are. I mean, we cannot do what you are doing. And we are blessed to have such comrades like you all around the world. And together we will win. And I'm sure of that, as I'm sure that the sun will shine tomorrow, dear Azra. Hope to see you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Laila, comrade.
From my heart, I say thank you. You are doing what you should do. And we are happy and glad to have you, comrades, with us. It gives us the strength and the power and the patience to continue this struggle, which will reach victory.
Thank you so much, comrades. We are actually the ones who are very, very blessed to have such comrades in our presence who have given us a history of fighting for liberation. And yes, we will continue in whatever way we can, and more than what we can. Victory to the people, victory to the Palestinian liberation, victory to all of us against imperialism. Thank you very much, all of us who have been here, who have been in the fight, and just keep your hopes up and keep fighting in whatever way you can, and we will be together again very soon. Thank you so much.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Cody or anybody else would like to say last words? Okay, friends, then with that, let us finish the webinar. Thank you so much, everybody. See you soon.